That's strangely close to Daniel Jones from the Giants. Daniel, is that you? Beat the Chiefs. Show me. If the Broncos and Russell Wilson can show me that they can beat the Chiefs, then I will start believing.
The crowd up. And so are this defense, and Kansas City won't snap the ball again. The Denver Broncos have beaten the Kansas City Chiefs.
David Montgomery on the Lions. Former Bear, gonna make this his revenge game for sure. David Montgomery gets the touchdown that ices the game. No! And there's a flag. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. There's flags. Snap. Hold. Kick.
Denver wins! Denver wins! Let's go!
They're open. No!
What happened? Oh shit. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Only Football Podcast. Not really, there's others, but we are called Only Football, and tonight we are going to be getting into fantasy football. I'm doing you guys a big favor. I've decided, out of the goodness of my heart, to subscribe to the best fantasy football advice platform in the world. And when I tell you that it is deep, it is very deep. It's actually pretty insane. I was expecting it to be a lot less. But since I paid for it, I figured what I'll do is I'll go live and I'll share some of the advice on here and then some of my own advice that isn't on here. First off, do you guys have Cooper Kupp available on your waiver wire? Because this is the first week in my league that Cooper Kupp is available. And I'm still seeing Romeo Doubs available in a lot of leagues. If you're in a league with Romeo Doubs on the waiver wire, you should probably pick him up now. I'm seeing he's on 48% of leagues he's rostered, not even half. We got Dale Spence in the chat. What's up, Dale? I know that like the consensus for a while has been there is no number one receiver. There's nobody you can really trust in Green Bay's offense. That's just not the case right now. And it's been that way for a couple of weeks. In the absence of a couple of the players that are missing, you've seen Romeo Doubs emerge as the most trusted wide receiver. And the reason he's available still in, 55% of leagues, it's because, fortunately for you, he didn't score a touchdown. But had he scored a touchdown, he would have been probably the number one addition. Because against the Bengals, he had an 85% snap share. Okay, and there was the bye week the week before that. But the week before that against Dallas, he had 90%. And we saw 90% against Cleveland. So 85 was actually on the low spectrum. Okay, when you look at his game log, okay, aside from the snap percent, we want to see targets. Okay, is this guy getting, and for me, I want, 6 and up is good. All right, now since the injuries that have happened to the Packers wide receivers, we saw the Dallas game. He had 8 targets, 6 catches, 58 yards. He had 3 touchdowns in that game. And a lot of people were like, oh, well, that's definitely not happening again. All right, fair enough. They go to the bye week, and then against the Bengals, he has more targets. He has 9 targets, nearly double-digit targets. Green Bay's got one of the better defenses in the league. This is an offense that is competent. Like, you would think if there was a number one receiver on a team getting almost double-digit targets that has 3 touchdowns in his last 2 games in a low of 55 yards, averaging 11 catches per reception last week, you would think that, oh, the quarterback must be terrible. This must be a Jets receiver or something. This is the Green Bay Packers receiver. The only reason he's available is because we're really set in our ways about the Packers as a whole, and we're not willing to change. And I would urge you to change. And if you're wrong, send his ass back to waivers. No harm, no foul. I'm not saying you have to drop one of your starters for him, but if you have Troy Franklin, on your bench like I do, and you've been waiting for him to pop off like he did week 2, and it's just not happening, yes, swap him out. We got Dale. He said, got offered Troy Franklin and my second for Trevor Lawrence in a super flex. Oh, I've played fantasy football for 6 years. I've never done the draft picks. Is that your draft pick next year? Do you guys do draft picks? You guys trade draft picks for Trevor Lawrence? And then in the super flex, you guys start 2 quarterbacks? I wasn't expecting my first question to be so hard. Let me just look it up really quick. All right, Superflex League rules. One of the starting flex positions can be used for whatever you want: quarterback, running back, wide receiver, or tight end. Okay. So you got offered Troy Franklin and your second round pick for Trevor Lawrence. I don't think it's worth it, honestly. I mean, your second round pick is very valuable, and I would imagine you wouldn't pick Trevor Lawrence with a second round pick. And I don't know if Troy Franklin adds anything to this trade at all. I mean, I feel like the most valuable thing in that trade offer is the second round pick, and you're currently holding it. So I would pass on that. That would be a hard pass for me, trying to get a second round pick and then add a player for a quarterback that's mid. I like the Jags and I like Trevor Lawrence, but fantasy wise, he's not, somebody that there's so many other quarterbacks that I would rather start if I was in a super flex and I had the ability to start 2 quarterbacks. I'm sure in a super flex league, everybody does that. So there's probably not a lot of great quarterbacks available, but if you could, give me a handful of quarterbacks that are available, that would help. If I look at my team, here's Dale said, second round pick is a rookie draft pick. Each year we draft new rookies and keep our teams. Oh, okay. Okay, so yeah, I would still keep it. This is a really, really the quarterback class coming out is actually really good. There's a couple there. The quarterback out of South Carolina is probably going to start. Actually, let me pull it up really quick. The website I use, if you want to go to it too, is NFLDraftBuzz.com. Once again, that's NFLDraftBuzz.com. This is by far the best website. I mean, it goes through everything. You can go to the 2026 draft, then you can sort it out. This is all free. They do their own scouting reports on each player, but it gives you the top 10 prospects. Right now, the number 1 prospect is Ohio State's safety, Caleb Downs. Then you got an offensive tackle out of Miami. Then you got a defensive line edge out of Miami, another offensive tackle out of Alabama, yada, yada, yada. Okay, then we get a running back, Jeremiah Love. He's almost a 90 rating, which is that's a 3-down back that's going to start immediately. Lenoris Sellers out of South Carolina Gamecocks. That's who is going to be starting next year. But he's a dual threat type of quarterback. He has a Jalen Hurts plus skill set. He's the number 1 scouted quarterback right now. He's 6'3", 240. His 40-yard dash, 4.6, not slow. He was a redshirt freshman, lived up to the hype in 2024. So this is only his second year starting, and he's looking to come into the league. As a redshirt freshman, he completed 65.6% of his passes, 2,500 yards, 18 touchdowns, almost 700 yards of rushing, and 7 touchdowns on the ground. His dual threat ability was on full display against Texas A&M when he threw for 244 yards and ran for 106 in an upset win. He saved his best for last with a 166-yard rushing performance at Clemson, the 4th highest single game rushing total by a quarterback in school history. So this dude is going to be available. Probably, if I had to guess, you got Cleveland, who's going to have he's going to probably be a Cleveland Brown. They got 2 draft picks. So if they need to move up higher, they can, but it's getting very predictable which teams need a quarterback and which teams don't. The Rams might be a sneaky team that needs a quarterback, but outside of that, the Raiders, I was just talking about this the other day. I said, the draft class in 2024, and I said it then, I was like, that's going to go down as the greatest of all time. But because of that, because of how rare it is for what happened to happen, we may be approaching, 3 years from now where great quarterbacks are coming out of college and there's nowhere for them to go. It's never happened before, but I think we're getting pretty close because there's only about 4 teams, if you really think about it, that need a quarterback. And this is a really good quarterback draft class coming up. And if, 3 of 4 hit, and then next year, 2027, you got Arch Manning probably, and then the year after that, where do these guys go? You would have to predict like Sam Darnold falls apart, or one of these quarterbacks that are starting now just don't pan out, which I think is getting harder to predict. And that's what's really brought the parity across the NFL. And I was thinking this the other day before it was getting blasted everywhere on X. I was like, it feels like this year, there is not that separation of like tier 1, that's like Buffalo, Kansas City, Baltimore. Then there's this next tier, with whatever. It's like everybody's kind of together as a contender. And then there's like 4 or 5 bad teams, and then everyone else is competing. And I think the great quarterback play is really to blame for that. I think that's what's kind of leveled the playing field, is everybody's got a good quarterback for the most part. Absolutely. But yeah, I think I would hold on to that second. But I can't appreciate Trevor Lawrence, and for what it's worth, I do like Liam Cohen a lot. But there's 6 quarterbacks projected to go in the first round next year. I mean, that in itself is pretty wild. So it may turn out that your second round pick is more valuable by getting one of these dual threat quarterbacks. I'm kind of excited to see these guys at the next level. So going into like lineup advice, okay? I always like to tell people my team before I really go into it, because I want people to know where I'm coming from. Okay, this is my team. I'm going to give you my roster, and a lot of you are going to be in the same situation I'm in. It was even worse last week. I have Lamar Jackson, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin, Terry McLaurin, Ricky Pearsall, Travis Hunter, TJ Hawkinson, Dalton Kincaid, bye week, Chase McLaughlin, I picked up off waivers, Tyler Bass, IR, Packers defense. And then I picked up Josh Downs from waivers as well. And let me see. Rankings are based on our consensus rankings in the scoring setting for this league. Okay. And then I picked up Zonovan Knight. I'm an idiot because I dropped Vital from the Chargers right before kickoff. I'm like, switch it out. I'm going to go with Knight. And I had a whole speech on why I thought you should get Vital. And I told everybody, and then I did it. And then I abandoned ship 10 minutes before kickoff for no reason besides the Cardinals came out. Jonathan Gannon said Zonovan Knight is going to be the lead running back. And I thought, oh, okay. Well, I guess the Vital thing is 50-50, even though I knew it wasn't going to be. And that's just another case of overthinking. Like sometimes you second guess yourself and you pay the price for it. Rarely have I ever second guessed myself and it's worked out. You know what I mean? But Lamar Jackson hasn't played the last 3 weeks. That's been annoying to deal with. I got through it 2 weeks ago by starting Justin Fields. Last week, I didn't want anything to do with Justin Fields going against the Broncos, so I picked up Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones did awesome. He had 2 touchdowns in week 6. And he's been able to kind of hold it down. I'm going to leave him going against the Chargers this weekend. Is there better options? Yes. But on waivers, no. Christian McCaffrey and Jonathan Taylor, they've been amazing. I mean, they've really been kind of just like trucking along, helping my team. Now, if they did a redraft today, would I get Christian McCaffrey 6th overall? No. But everyone was worried about him, and I made a deal. I was going to draft Christian McCaffrey if he made it to me at 6. I was like, I'm going to take him and run. And then when it came back down, I picked up Jonathan Taylor, and I thought then, and it's even more clear now, that I was going to be in good shape to win my league if these two stay healthy. Okay, then unfortunately, I was dumb enough to draft Terry McLaurin next. And he's been a huge disappointment. Huge. I mean, he the contract thing, and then he finally plays, and there's no continuity. It seems like he's out of sync, and then he's hurt, and now he hasn't played in 4 weeks, and he's supposed to play this week. He hasn't been good even when he does play, so I don't know what to do with him. Travis Hunter's been disappointing too. It's kind of weird. Every single week, Travis Hunter is projected 11 or 12 points. He has not met his projections once. Yet the projected points, not 1 week has Travis Hunter actually reached it. But Yahoo Fantasy Sports, they continue to, I don't know, what is the word the kids use? Glaze him and just expect him to do really well. He did see 7 targets last week, so hey, things are on the up and up, maybe. But it's an international game. I don't know why, but that just is usually a deal breaker for me. Ricky Pearsall, he's not practicing. He didn't practice today. So Ricky Pearsall's awesome. Like, that's why I could afford to have, Terry McLaurin kind of be mid, is because I'm like, I got Ricky Pearsall holding it down. When I lost Ricky Pearsall, things got a little more desperate because I have Xavier Worthy, but he wasn't playing either. So I've been stretched pretty thin, but I'm doing what I got to do to make it happen. So this week it's going to look like this: Daniel Jones, Christian McCaffrey, Jonathan Taylor, Xavier Worthy, Josh Downs, and then tight end's going to be Hawkinson. And then kicker McLaughlin, defense Packers. And then, yeah, that's going to be, I guess, in my flex will be Terry McLaurin, assuming he is healthy. Going against Dallas, I'm like, surely he'll have a good game against Dallas. But that's the plan this week. Now, I may make some lineup changes like on my waiver wire. There's some guys available. I want to get, for me, I want to get Romeo Doubs and start him. I'm just waiting for waivers to clear because I can't pick him up until that happens. And then Darnell Mooney is available in my league. Somebody just dropped him. I was like, has he been that disappointing? But he hasn't played since week 4. We're going on week 7 now. He's been listed as a limited participant today in practice, so he's getting ramped up, and apparently he's going to start soon, but he's only rostered in 46% of leagues. So another guy that got dropped, and I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, there's a couple of guys on this report. Jalen Coker, I picked him up, and I was able to throw him into my IR spot still because technically, oh my gosh, he is officially not listed on IR. Let me verify this. This just happened a minute ago. Let's see. Jalen. No, on Yahoo Fantasy, he's still on IR. So I was able to pick him up. Jalen Coker, somebody that you guys should pick up. I mean, right now, there's a lot of wide receivers that you could pick up on, at least in my league. Darnell Mooney, Chris Godwin. I mean, Chris Godwin's available. Now, he will not play in week 7. He's got a leg injury. And he only had, 2 games, one against the Eagles week 4, one against the Seahawks. But he played 80% of the snaps. Now, they probably wanted to wean him in, but remember, Mike Evans got hurt. And there was no McMillan, so they had to play him probably more than they wanted to. But he got 10 targets against Philly. 10 targets. Only 26 yards, but I don't know. Like, if Godwin is fully healthy, I feel like he would be a hard pass. You know what I mean? Like, he's somebody that you would think you want to start at receiver if he's fully healthy. We're seeing Luther Burden start to get ramped up in Chicago's offense, which I think is actually a good thing. Like, I was very high on Luther Burden coming into the draft. We saw him have 20 points week 3, and then we only saw 2 targets the week after. And then they had the bye week, and then last, what was that, Monday, 2 days ago against the Commanders, he had 4 targets, caught all 4 for 51 yards, averaging 12, almost 13 yards per catch, but only a 23% snap. I mean, it's hard to even pick somebody up if they're only playing 23%. At the wide receiver position, or I'm sorry, tight end position, Juwan Johnson is available. He was previously dealing with an ankle injury, but since he's recovered from it, he has since recovered from it. So he's off the injury report entirely for week 7. He hasn't been nearly as effective recently as he was at the start of the season. He shouldn't be started in most league formats for the time being, but look at that snap percent: 99, 96, 90, 90, 85, 71. Because then he got dealt with an injury, but 15 points, 15 points, 11 points. I mean, that's not terrible. Look at TJ Hawkinson. I mean, there's some really bad numbers there. Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith is available. Now, he has a lower snap percentage, but he's more, the targets are there. He's more involved when he's on the field. Isaiah Likely, he has been starting to get snaps again. He had an 81% target or snap percent, but Mark Andrews is rumored to be available for trade. So maybe Isaiah Likely is a stash in wait. If Andrews is out of the equation, we know that Isaiah Likely can be a top 5 tight end if Mark Andrews is out of the equation. So Mark Andrews has been heavily discussed in trades going back to the summer. And remember, this is a contract year for Mark Andrews. So when the season's up, they're not going to get anything from Mark Andrews. So their best bet is to get rid of him before the trade deadline. And even if they trade him for, say, a 5th or a 6th round pick, that's more than they would have gotten if they don't plan on paying him. So I think Isaiah Likely is somebody you want to pick up and stash, because I do think he'll be starting for the Ravens. All right. Now, let's go to some of the biggest moves to make. Week 6 is in the books, so it's time to start talking about what happened. Okay. We're gonna go through and give you the most important moves to make across every game. Who to add, drop, buy, sell, stash, start, all of it, based on what we saw last week and what we've seen all year. Okay. So number 1, and I'm actually going to put these up for you guys as I go. All right. Number 1. Add Michael Williams. That's right. Add Michael Williams. We got a report early Sunday morning that Bam Knight would be the Cardinals starter instead of Michael Carter. Now, that was the report that had me drop Vital and pick up Bam Knight. Not proud of it. The backfield touches were essentially a split, with Knight seeing more carries and Carter seeing more targets. Carter also started the game and saw the majority of the work early on. But last week, Knight scored a touchdown, this time from the 1-yard line. However, he also got hurt at the end of the third quarter, but he returned. He seems to have a lock on the red zone role. He's had now 2 carries inside the 5-yard line. Like we said last week, mentioning Carter as a sell, this Arizona backfield is very unpredictable. Very unpredictable. We got Amari Demercado as only 1 touch, but he got hurt in the second quarter. Bam Knight, 51% snaps, 11 carries, 14 routes, 2 targets, 4 yards, and a touchdown. Michael Carter, 44% snaps, 9 carries, 20 routes, 5 targets. And then Amari played 3 snaps, 4%. This backfield will remain running back by committee. The Packers, and then a bye week next. Okay. According to Fantasy Pros SOS strength of schedule tool, Arizona running back schedule is bottom 8. So both Cardinals' 2 top wide receivers got hurt in this game. The Marvin Harrison Jr. concussion is pretty concerning, as it's his 2nd documented concussion since entering the NFL. And if you were watching that game, I believe it was his 2nd concussion within like 5 plays of that game. I couldn't believe he was still on the field after they showed him make a catch with his helmet banging on the floor. And then all of a sudden, he's like in the game. And then he hits his head again on the floor. And I'm like, oh my God, why is he back out there? So there's no way he's going to play. I expect him to miss the next 2 weeks minimum because of the concussion. And he should. Michael Wilson did return to the game, however. Okay. In their absence, we saw guys like Zay Jones, 5 targets, 79 yards on 9 targets, 5 catches, 79 yards on 9 targets, and Trey McBride, who had 8 catches, 72 yards, 1 touchdown, stepped up big. No concerns with McBride if Jacoby Brissett is the starter with Kyler Murray hurt. It might even be good, and that's what I was saying watching the Cardinals game. I was like, I feel like the Cardinals offense is moving a lot more efficient. 1 game with Brissett, and McBride already found the end zone. peppered with end zone targets. Jacoby Brissett knows where the bread is buttered. Kyler Murray's injury, the foot sprain, a midfoot sprain, is a version of Lisfranc injury. There's a possibility of Murray being out more than this week, as pushing it can cause an aggravation. So if you're hurting at receiver, Jones and or Wilson, Zay Jones or Michael Wilson, are desperation additions to consider. We saw Michael Wilson saw a 22% air yard share, 82 air yards, going 4 for 44 on 5 targets. The Packers have a really tough run defense, but it can be thrown on. Expect the Cardinals to attack the air. They only got, of course, McBride's going to get his targets. But after that, we saw Zay Jones with 9 targets, and we saw Michael Wilson get himself some targets. So, just FYI, with the injury that's going on right now. All right. Next news. And this is, if you guys can, obviously, in some cases, these people are not going to, the league manager is not going to want to trade him. But if you can buy Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid did not play because he has an oblique injury, and that really screwed me because I had him starting, and of course, it's Monday night when they tell you he's not playing, and I couldn't just start TJ Hawkinson because he was on a bye week, and I didn't really feel like dropping a really good player for a tight end I'm going to use for 1 week. So I was just kind of hoping and wishing that this was not going to be the case with Dalton Kincaid missing the game, but he did. So I dropped somebody and picked up Knox. And luckily, Knox had a touchdown actually in this game. So, it wasn't the worst thing in the world, but Dalton Kincaid not playing. And that was just the first injury Buffalo had to deal with. They also lost defensive tackle Daquan Jones. They had some more secondary issues, and wide receiver Josh Palmer. Palmer looked primed for a big game. The broadcast was speaking about Joe Brady wanting to get him more involved, but he got hurt after his second catch. Tyrell Shavers ended up being more involved, which is not a recipe for success. Keon Coleman led the team with 6 targets, but finished with just 3 catches for 11 yards. If Kincaid and Palmer are going to be out long-term, Buffalo needs their second-year wide receiver to step up, and it's going to be the Keon Coleman show. Although the usage hasn't been there, Coleman has 6+ targets in back-to-back games, 23% target share over the last 2 weeks against 2 better man cornerbacks, leaders in air yards. Trust the process. Add Keon Coleman after he gets dropped this week. The Bills are on a bye week, week 7. Okay. So if you see Keon Coleman hit your waivers, snag him. James Cook played a season low, not including blowouts in snaps versus Atlanta. The Bills took him out in passing downs in favor of Ty Johnson. Why though? As he saw 0 involvement as a receiver, he had no targets and fewer routes than Ty Johnson. With Cook running the ball effectively and Buffalo down multiple skill players, it made no sense. Buffalo likes Johnson as a pass catcher, but when push comes to shove, Cook's the guy you paid to be your superstar. When Sean McDermott was asked about Cook's usage post-game, he acknowledged that it might change moving forward. What a novel idea there. This is the one that I just did recently. Add Jalen Coker. He's available. Trust me. He's available. Go to your waiver report and add him. And if you don't have the roster spot, he's still on IR on Yahoo. So you can just slide him in there because who uses their IR spot? I mean, let's be real. Most most of the time it's like if somebody important's on IR, okay, like that's one thing. But usually, like, you'll have somebody there that's actually out for the season just because you don't like the way it looks to see it get that player get dropped. You want people to see. So if like you're not really using that IR spot, get Jalen Coker. Ricky Dowdle, another monster game from him in his revenge game. 34 touches for over 200 yards from scrimmage. But now the question becomes what happens to this backfield after Chuba Hubbard returns. They're going to use both guys, unfortunately, and that could turn this backfield into something like Seattle's, which for fantasy football is disgusting. But if anything, you could look to trade him to maybe the Chuba Hubbard manager. Dowdle and Hubbard ranked 3rd and 4th, respectively, in rushing success rate this season. The broadcast talked about wanting to get rookie Jimmy Horn Jr. more involved. Noteworthy, but not super actionable considering Jalen Coker will be coming back soon. And we saw T-Mac finally scored twice. And of course, one of them was his worst receiving outputs of the season. If you missed the buy low window, fear not. Sauce Gardner's coming up next. So we could see a whatever game from T-Mac. Always buying. The rookie wide receivers 13th in points this season. Also, another reason to add Coker off waivers, targets should flow his way as the Panthers slot wide receiver versus Gang Green, because of course T-Mac is going to be lined up. Sauce Gardner, you look at the type of defense that the Jets run, and it's a lot of two-man, a lot of man coverage. Sauce Gardner, he's going to be lined up on T-Mac the whole game, and that's going to be that matchup. And he's probably going to win for most of it. So who's going to benefit from that? Jalen Coker. And if he goes out there in his first game and has 20 points and a touchdown, yeah, good luck getting him off waivers unless you're the number one priority the next week. But Jalen Coker, pick him up. We got B. Hey, man, should I make this trade? It's I give up A.J. Brown and George Pickens for Rashee Rice and Bowers in a dynasty league. Hell yeah. Love the flag in the back. Hell yeah. Okay. Great question. Now, there's a major variable I need to know. What's your tight end situation currently like? I cannot properly answer this question without knowing how things are currently going for you at the tight end position. And I'll tell you kind of how I go through whether or not to make a trade once I get that from you. Brock Bowers, of course, is obviously a good buy. I would say a good buy low, but the AJ Brown thing, don't really care all that much. The George Pickens things is huge. I don't have a tight end at all. I'm starting Evan Ingram, and that's not good. You can't find a better tight end than Evan Ingram. I mean, look, the thing about it's kind of weird because you got a lot of all your players are in fluid positions because you got George Pickens, who is like top 5 wide receiver. But CeeDee Lamb's about to come back. And like, what is that going to look like? I think George Pickens is a set and forget for the rest of the year, even with CeeDee Lamb coming back. But how much will that affect CeeDee Lamb? I mean, how much will CeeDee Lamb coming back affect George Pickens? That's a very important question. But I just think he's done too much. He's accomplished too much for Dak to not look his way. And of course, every team's number one DB, Sauce Gardner, Pat Surtain coming up in a matchup, they're all going to be covering CeeDee Lamb. So, and CeeDee Lamb's expected back by that Broncos game. So I still think George Pickens is a player that you're just absolutely, you're going to want to keep. Now getting Brock Bowers is exciting. But I'm concerned about the Raiders offense as a whole. The Raiders offense hasn't been good. Now, let me see something really quick, because my gut is telling me I wouldn't do it if I were you, because yes, you're getting Brock Bowers. Okay, that's great. Let me just pull him up really quick, because I think this is important to talk about. Okay, Brock Bowers, he had one game, and it was week 1 where he went over 100 points, because I remember, because I did the recap, and it was, I think it was his 5th game over 100 yards receiving. And then since that day, he still had 8 targets the week after, but only 8 fantasy points, 38 yards, 5 catches. And that was really the norm. Like, Brock Bowers was projected 15, 14, 15, about 15 points every single week. He didn't crack 10. Not one time after week 1 against the Patriots. So I think Brock Bowers, it's a PCL injury. So, like, when he comes back, is this something that will continue to get aggravated? And I'm like, man, you got a sure thing with George Pickens. And yes, does the Evan Ingram thing suck? Sure. But let's just say on average, Brock Bowers is getting you, let's be generous, 12 points. Okay, let's go with 12. He's giving you 12 points. All right. I could go on my available players right now and go to tight ends and see Theo Johnson, Juwan Johnson, Jonnu Smith. Let's just look at Michael Mayer. I mean, the backup, he got 16 points last week, 7 targets. So that would have been Brock Bowers. So maybe not the best argument to make. But what I'm trying to say is, like, you can look at Theo Johnson. He had 7 targets last week with 21 points, 2 touchdowns. The week before that, he has 10 points, 5 targets, a touchdown. Him and Jackson Dart are finding, chemistry. He has 1 down game against Philly, and now he's still on waivers. But Theo Johnson, imagine if he has another 2 touchdown game. What I'm trying to say is, like, you can get somebody that is going to get you 10, 11 points on waiver wires. And then you go, what's the difference between Brock Bowers on an average week? But between Theo Johnson and Brock Bowers, maybe 5 points. Okay, so you're plus 5. But now subtract how much points you're losing by letting this guy, George Pickens, go. Because this is a guy that, especially if A.J. Brown's your other receiver, A.J. Brown has been wildly inconsistent. And I would bet that George Pickens has won you some fantasy games this week, like this year, by himself. And the thing is like, in the beginning of the year, people were like, is it sustainable? Oh yeah. Look at this. 11 targets last week. What are we talking about? 11 targets, 32 points, 168 receiving yards. You can't trade this guy for a tight end that's going to get you maybe 5 more points every single week. Yeah, that's how I feel about it. Because guess what? There's not a receiver that's going to get you these kind of points. There's just not. Not on waiver wires, and they're not going to be any trade offers. Like, you hit the jackpot. I wouldn't turn around and give it up. Because that's how you win leagues, is by having value draft picks. If I had to guess, you didn't draft George Pickens in the 2nd round. That's where Brock Bowers was drafted. So you're essentially giving up a value pick for a really high draft pick. And there's a reason that guy wants to do this trade with you. And you got Garrett sitting right now. Are we talking about Garrett Wilson? But I'm 1-4 and I've had some bad luck. Well, I would say this. If you're 1-4, it's not because of George Pickens. And I would say George Pickens by himself is making up for whatever your tight end is not getting. Like, the best case, people just want 12 to 15 points from their tight end every single week. Now, you can go on waivers. Now, I would probably pivot from Evan Ingram. There's a lot better options than Evan Ingram. Now, Evan Ingram is starting to see an uptick in usage. So last week, we saw Sean Payton starting to gain a little trust with Evan Ingram. And then this week, I wouldn't be surprised to see him really start to take root. So he's somebody that I probably wouldn't drop. I would just, I would wait for him to have that breakout game where he's got, okay, yeah, he had, 9 targets in this game. And I think last week he had probably like 5 targets, if I had to guess. Evan Ingram, let's see how many targets he had last week. He had 6 targets. Okay, yeah. 42 yards. He had 6 targets the week before, 7 targets the week before. I mean, honestly, Evan Ingram in his last 3 weeks is averaging double-digit points. You got 7-point game, 10-point game, and a 13-point game. 7 plus 13, 20 plus 10, 30. Yeah, 10 points. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to swipe him out and put in a guy that's going to get you 15 points. And then you're going to lose a 30-point receiver. And you're going to put someone in that's going to get you like 17 at receiver. You're going to be you're actually going to be worse off. And trust me, I know that when you're 1-4, you're just looking to wheel and deal. You're like, well, Insanity is doing the same thing. I get that. Like, you want to make changes, you want to be proactive, but you want to make sure that you're making the right type of trades, the ones that are going to make your team better. And I think at 1-4, the reality is if you didn't have George Pickens, you probably would be 0-for. And for that reason, I would say that's a no for me, dog. But I appreciate the question. I really do. And if you got any other, like, I don't know like what your other what your bench looks like. I don't know how many, is it a 10-man league, a 12-man league? But I would say right now is probably the best time of the year on the waiver wire. This is the best time because there's so many moving parts, and people, they've gotten to the point of the year where they are bailing on their players. They are saying, I'm done waiting for you to work. And all of a sudden Travis Hunter's available. And you're like, oh, maybe I'll stash him. I don't know. Like, Travis Hunter isn't a great example because he's on my bench and he's been there all year. And I wouldn't start him. But there's other players that are becoming available that you're like, oh, really? Why is this guy available? Just the wide receiver position. And I was saying this earlier. If Romeo Doubs is available, he should be flexing. He should be flexed. The only reason Romeo Doubs is available is because we have a long history of there being no number 1 wide receiver for Green Bay. So, like, even if he has a really good week, it doesn't mean nothing to us because we know that, that's going to happen once and now and then. And the problem is it's not repeatable every single week. But with the injuries that we've seen that the Packers have taken, Romeo Doubs is their number 1 receiver. Make no mistake about it. Almost 10 targets last week. I mean, if he would have had a touchdown, we're talking about a 20-point game. And then if you go to the game before that, he has 30 points, 3 touchdowns, 8 targets. I'm not saying he's going to get 3 touchdowns every single week, but I am saying that this is a receiver that has almost 20 targets in his last 2 games. And he does have 3 touchdowns and over 100 yards. And the fact that he's available in 55% of leagues, and look, it just changed. It went from 55% of leagues to 67% rostered in the last hour. So, yeah, people are starting to pick him up. And I mean, absolutely, like, he's somebody that shouldn't be on the waiver wire anymore. I'm going to see if I can pick him up right now, actually. It wouldn't let me do it earlier. Yeah, you cannot add a player until the waiver period ends. I can't really figure out when that is, but I'm hoping I can pick him up later because Romeo Doubs is somebody. But anyway, what I'm trying to say was that there's players that people have given up on. Cooper Kupp just hit my waiver wire. Cooper Kupp was somebody that was not available. Darnell Mooney just hit my waiver wire. People got tired waiting on Darnell Mooney. I'm like, okay, but before he got hurt, he had 11 targets. I get he only had 4 catches for 44 yards, but I'm more interested in the 11 targets than the catches. I mean, bad weeks are going to happen. The Atlanta offense seems to be starting to click, and we know that Drake London is going to take a lot of attention from opposing DBs. He's been out since week 4. People are tired of not having a roster spot. So Darnell Mooney's available. 30% of the league he's rostered. 70% of leagues he's available. B said, yeah, Pickens has been my only bright spot, but my running backs are Breece Hall and Kenneth Walker, but I'm definitely picking up Theo Johnson right now. Yeah, that's a good call. I would pick up Theo Johnson. And then running backs, man, it sucks because Seattle, the way they run their running backs is just terrible for fantasy football. It really is. It's like, oh, we're gonna give everybody exactly 50%. I mean, he only outgained Zach Charbonnet by 10 yards last week, and he's getting, progressively worse. It seems like 19, 18, 12, 9, 4. Only 10 attempts the last couple weeks. I mean, look, somebody that's running the ball 10 times for 86 yards. I'm not a professor, but that's almost 9 yards a carry. Why is that guy not getting more touches? That I would be so frustrated if I was holding Kenneth Walker, because it's not like this guy is not talented enough to be a top 10 fantasy running back. They're just not using him correctly for fantasy, I guess. Seattle's a good team right now, but for fantasy, it's just not the best. And then you said you have Breece Hall, who I think we're going to see Justin Fields get benched pretty soon. And I think that'll help Breece Hall in the passing game. But Breece Hall's, he's solid. Like, he's still getting, between 14 and 22 carries a game. Like, we saw 22 carries last week, only 59 yards, but the Broncos defense is different. I mean, you're going against Carolina, but then you got the Bengals game coming up. You should be able to against the Bengals. Breece Hall should have a big game. But I feel like Breece Hall would be better as like a flex. Like, that's like the best flex in the league, right? Because your flex is like, if it can be somebody as good as a Breece Hall, I feel like that's the perfect flex. Like, my 2 running backs is CMC and Jonathan Taylor, but I'm scraping by at wide receiver because of that. And I feel like that would be my favorite flex if I could choose any, realistically, obviously. But yeah, I mean, Brees Hall's, I feel like you might be getting really unlucky. Like, this team doesn't seem that bad to me. Kenneth Walker is not doing you any favors. I think I would try to trade Kenneth Walker. And I'm trying to think of, like, let me see, some running backs that you could maybe buy low, because that's kind of what you need right now. Let's see. I think Travis Etienne would be a good buy low candidate. I have my list of buy lows here. Javonte Williams, Travis Etienne, AJ Brown. Like, he's trying to get you to give up AJ Brown. Saquon Barkley. Probably my favorite buy low candidate is Saquon Barkley, especially after week 6 Thursday night. There's going to be a lot of fantasy league managers regretting taking him as high as they did. I mean, think about it. He's been a top 17 running back in all 6 games this season, yet everybody feels like he's been the biggest failure in the league. Philly's had to play from behind against the Giants. So, of course, there was fewer rushing attempts in that game. But I think you can, whoever is holding Saquon Barkley, you could inform them that he has an upcoming week 9 bye that'll help sell the trade offer. And, you could give up a 3rd or 4th round player that's currently exceeding their draft day value. And I'm thinking for your team, I would have to look at the whole thing, but from what you've told me already, I would probably, I think there's a lot more wide receivers that you can get on waivers than running backs. I would try to trade AJ Brown for Saquon Barkley. Like, these are the kind of moves that I would try to make, because look, Philly's going to get it figured out, right? They had an identity crisis because of AJ Brown, and that's really where this whole thing stemmed from. If you think about it, AJ Brown did that stuff where he sent out those cryptic tweets, and all of a sudden it was a national story that this dude's not happy. And look at this. Week 1, 18 carries. Week 2, 22 carries. Week 3, 18 carries. Week 4, 19 carries. Okay? They won all of those games. The lowest amount of carries he had was 18 carries. The cryptic tweet thing goes out after the Tampa Bay game, and then they play Denver, and all of a sudden AJ Brown's getting extra targets. That's great for you, but Saquon Barkley had 6 attempts. Like, how does Saquon Barkley have 6 carries in a game that you were playing with a lead for the whole thing? That's a team that the offensive coordinator, like, I'm sorry, but, like, I don't know this guy from Adam, but if your wide receiver throws a little tantrum and then you go from a team that runs it 20 times a game to giving the best running back in the NFL 6 carries, like, I don't know if you're fit for the job. And then the next week against the Giants, he only gets 12 carries. So yeah, like the 2 games where the Eagles had Saquon Barkley had his lowest total carry, they lost both of them. So I think, like, the experiment is over now. It's like, okay, we tried that. I guess we're just going to have to run it. Let's just go back to what we were doing when we were winning football games, right? Let's self-evaluate what happened the last 2 weeks, because we scored 17 points in both of those games. But before that, we were in the 30s, so, like, what gives? And obviously that's the biggest glaring change they made, was not feeding Barkley. So I think this is a great time for someone to buy Barkley. I expect Philly to go back to doing what they do and pissing off A.J. Brown, and Barkley getting back to around 20 points a game. But yeah, it's been a disappointing start to the season, but that's why it's a buy low, right? Buy low is going to come with those kind of storylines. So Javonte Williams, also another guy. He had a disappointing week 6, only 29 yards rushing, 5 yards receiving in a game where Dallas put up 27 points. I feel like I've talked to a lot of people. Many owners are still sleeping on him, even though he's RB4 in half PPR this league. He has 3 top 4 or better finishes this year. And he's the lead back on the offense scoring the most points per game than any team in the NFL. Carolina has a really good run defense, which would explain, why his yards were down last week. So I think this could be a good chance to grab Williams before he has that bounce back performance, and then his value is going to go way back up. Offer owners down on him like a package deal that includes players who had a really good week, recently, like a Rico Dowdle, or players filling in for an injured running back, like Kamani Vidal, who, if you guys were watching this show last week on Thursday, I told everybody to go pick up Vidal. The NFL, the reporters from the Chargers, everybody was saying that it was going to be a 50-50 split between Haskins and Vidal. Harbaugh wouldn't say anything, but we only had, half of a quarter of a sample size with Amari and Hampton being injured, and one player played each series, the whole series. Vidal played a whole series, Haskins played a whole series, and then the game was over. And it was like, okay, so they did exactly 50-50. What are they going to do on Sunday? No one knows. But I said Vidal was going to be your guy, Kamani Vidal. And it was simple. How did I know that? I just Wikipedia both running backs. And I found out that one of them played under Harbaugh his whole collegiate career at Michigan. Yeah, let me go with that one. So I think you could take a running back that's had like success recently, and get Javonte Williams, but Travis Etienne would be probably the buy low candidate of the week. Over the last couple weeks, he's been underwhelming in the box scores, but we know that it's not a reflection of his role as the workhorse running back he is for the Jags. And that's what you want. I mean, that's your problem right now with Kenneth Walker, is you don't have a workhorse running back. And if you look, a little deeper into Liam Cohen, the Tampa Bay Bucks were 31st in rushing yards per game when Liam Cohen took over. They were top 5. So they went from 31st to 5th. And you're like, wow, okay, that's pretty damn good. Then he becomes a Jags head coach, and they go from 28th to 3rd or 4th. So like Liam Cohen, part of being a really good running team is like not just having that as your identity, but like being creative, being balanced, knowing when to run misdirection versus right up the gut. And Liam Cohen just has a knack for it. And everywhere he goes, he finds success running the football. I mean, even Bucky Irving looks like, he's had his moments this year, but, he looked a lot stronger under Liam Cohen. I'll say that. So, yeah, I think this could be a good time to pick up a team that has a undisputed running back with the lead role. Crazy good volume. I mean, that's just a rare opportunity that somebody has a recent dip in production, and then it opens this brief window to trade for a running back with real volume. And you only get a couple opportunities to do that. And, Travis Etienne is about one more high volume game away from being somebody that people will not consider trading. So go ahead. I think go get yourself a low end RB1 every single week for the rest of the season. at a discount because of his last couple of weeks not putting up good scores in the box office. Justin Fields. Unfortunately, Justin Fields struggled against the Broncos. Fortunately, actually, for me. But for fantasy purposes, he only completed 52% of his 17 passes. He had -9 net yards passing. I didn't even know that was possible. Apparently, it was like the worst game since they've been tracking it. It's pretty insane. However, most quarterbacks struggle against the Broncos defense, and then Fields has been outstanding in his other 3 healthy contests, averaging 242 passing yards, although a couple of those are just garbage time in the fourth quarter, but still, points are points. 1.3 touchdowns, 27.5 fantasy points per game. That's pretty good for a guy who's a dual threat, his game on the ground, averaging 8.7 rushing attempts per game, 51.7 yards per game, and 1 rushing touchdown per game. And now that the Broncos game happened and the Jets are, 0-6, Fields might be somebody you can get off waivers. But if you need a quarterback, this is somebody that I would really consider taking at this point. Okay, because the schedule is getting easier. He's got matchups with the Panthers and the Bengals over the next couple of weeks. If you can sell high on Jackson Dart or Sam Darnold for Justin Fields, I would do it in a heartbeat. Davante Adams. Oh, man. This is a great buy low. Oh, I promise. If you can get somebody to offer this, hold on. And B said, I have both Walker and Chubb, but I just don't even know anymore. I feel you. He gets them all the way down the field. Then they sub him out. It's so stupid. I hate that. And that I saw that last week. I needed Jahmyr Gibbs to score a touchdown. The Lions got all the way down the field, and when they got to the 2-yard line, they subbed in David Montgomery. And I was like, and I swear, I'll bet on David Montgomery, and they'll do the inverse of that. And I'm like, okay. It's so frustrating. You're like, why not reward the guy that got you there? Davante Adams, he's been good, not great so far this season, but Puka Nacua, his injury, he's going to be missing time with the ankle. The person with Davante Adams is going to see the path to increased production, so that doesn't help you. However, there's increased production, and then there's being a top 12 option for the next 5 games. Okay, that's how I view Davante Adams, with or without Puka Nacua. Over the next 5 games, if you look at the Rams schedule, they play beatable secondaries and high-scoring offenses. Davante Adams leads the league in red zone targets. He has 13. He's only caught 2 of them, but the usage is elite. It's only a matter of time before him and Matthew Stafford start to connect on those targets. So, like, right now, the guy that's holding him is go, no, Puka's hurt. He's going to get more usage. I don't know if they're going to think he's a top 5 wide receiver in the NFL. And that's how I view him. So if you can offer a trade, you can acquire him for like a Cortland Sutton or a Jalen Waddle. If you can offer a guy like that and get a Davante Adams, I mean, you I'm not even kidding. Like you may put yourself from out of the playoffs to into the playoffs making a move like this. And I'll say again, 13 red zone targets. Only caught 2 of them. It's only a matter of time. This is their first year together. It's going to start clicking. Puka Nacua comes back. He's going to draw all the number 1 DBs. It's kind of like CeeDee Lamb. Like CeeDee Lamb's going to come back, but the rapport that has been built between George Pickens isn't going anywhere. Chris Olave is a player I'm interested in acquiring. If his current manager is frustrated with him, through 6 weeks, he ranks second in targets, fifth in receptions. Think about that. Second in targets, fifth in receptions, ninth in air yards, and is a top 10 wide receiver among all receivers in first read share percentage. So the quarterback drops back. First read is Chris Olave, throws the ball. Okay, that's really what we want to see, because that is like, okay, this whole entire play is designed to getting Chris Olave the ball. Fantasy football is all about production, and Chris Olave, his fantasy manager likely is upset with him, but all the ingredients are there for Chris Olave to be a top wide receiver. He faces the Bears, Bucks, Rams, and Panthers before his Week 11 bye. All good wide receiver matchups. If you're really deep at running back, you could, potentially unload one of them for him, and you could even swap like a DJ Moore or a Marvin Harrison Jr. straight up for Olave, and I think that would be a good trade. It's clear in Chicago that Rome Odunze is going to be the guy. Courtland Sutton, he had a down day, and by the way, Courtland Sutton, I am hammering top 5 week coming up. Now, a lot of people probably don't know this. Why would you if you're not a Broncos fan? Courtland Sutton, he still brings donuts on Monday for the staff every single week. Why does he bring donuts? He brings donuts because his mentor, Demaryius Thomas, rest in peace, Demaryius Thomas brought donuts every single Monday, and Courtland Sutton does it to keep the tradition going. When we got the tragic news that Demaryius Thomas passed away, Denver had to play a game the next Sunday, and Denver lined up with only 10 men on the field, and then the delay of game penalty happened, and then Courtland Sutton ran out onto the field and lined up in Demaryius Thomas's spot, which was like him taking Demaryius Thomas's torch, kind of. And if you follow the Broncos, like we traded Demaryius Thomas after, he's one of the most successful wide receivers in Denver Broncos history, one of the most decorated wide receivers in Broncos history. But we traded him because Courtland Sutton was drafted as his replacement, but they spent a lot of time together before it got to that point where it was time to move off of Demaryius Thomas. And Courtland Sutton was, heartbroken by this. This was a sad, sad day that Sunday against the Detroit Lions. They were classy about it, declined the penalty. Courtland Sutton ran out onto the field. And this week, the Broncos are retiring his jersey, putting it in the Ring of Fame and the Ring of Honor. It's going to be an emotional day. Expect Courtland Sutton to have a day. This is one of those emotional edges that they're not going to that's not going to show up anywhere. The ESPN projections aren't going to have any mention of this, but I think it is worth mentioning. Okay. But aside from that, I think people also don't think Sutton is very good. Maybe it's his age or his offense, but people just, for whatever reason, don't think Sutton's a very good wide receiver. Just one catch for 17 yards last week. That could be enough for managers to feel like Sutton's on the decline, but he is the 13th ranked wide receiver overall this season, and his upcoming schedule tell a very different story. Thankfully, you probably don't have to give up a ton to get Sutton. But if you have like a Rico Dowdle level of a player with inflated production, I would try to trade him to snag Cortland Sutton, likely with a nice piece added on. Straight up, I'd offer Harold Fannin, see if I get a bite, somebody like that. But yeah, Cortland Sutton, somebody that is nearly a top 10 wide receiver this year, but still just underappreciated. Here's some good news for Kenneth Walker. If you have Kenneth Walker out there, and this might not be a popular one, obviously, this one was written before I found out how angry people were about Kenneth Walker. Because people are angry. You know, it's been a rough few weeks since he finished as RB9 and RB10 in weeks 2 and weeks 3. He's finished actually outside the top 25 every week since, but he's still getting double-digit carries. He's just not finding the end zone, which limits his scoring, but it's only a matter of time until that changes. Current managers might be frustrated by his lackluster performance. You could try to send a bench wide receiver for him to see if you could add a running back to your roster as we head down the stretch and injuries start piling up more than they already are. All right. Ja'Cory Crockett Merritt. Let me remove by Keon Coleman from here. This could be another buy low targets. And I was getting ready to call the Bears Commanders game. And when I was game prepping for that, I saw he was leading the NFL in yards per carry. Any team looking for a running back to help headed into week 7 should be looking at Bill. It wasn't amazing this week against the Bears defense. He should have taken advantage of that defense, but all the signs are there that say you should go with Bill. Try to trade for him if you can. Those who wanted to see the usage continue after his week 5 breakout, you got it. He carried the ball 17 times, with Jeremy McNichols being the only other running back to register any carries for Washington, and he only had 2. On top of that, the Commanders face a Cowboys defense next that, quite frankly, they shouldn't even be called the Dallas Cowboys. They don't deserve the D. They should be called the Alice Cowboys until they can stop a nosebleed. If DeAndre Swift, who scored in the Bears win over Washington, or either Seattle running back through name value can be used to acquire Bill Crocky Merritt, do it. So try it. DeAndre Swift for Bill. Kenneth Walker or Charbonnet. Try it. Straight up for Bill. T. Higgins. Good old T. Higgins. This is a good one. T. Higgins, I love this one because T. Higgins he certainly had a rough start to the season. He's struggled to rack up receptions, even targets at times over the last couple of weeks, but Higgins has averaged 7 targets a game. That's up from under 5 the first 3 weeks. And now with Flacco being there, he has a more stable quarterback under center. And that just, to me, Joe Flacco's the kind of guy that he's a veteran. Like he's like, okay. Where's T. Higgins? Where's Jamar Chase? Okay, got it. And that's what he's going to do, right? I think he's going to get back to wide receiver 2 status. But this is also like the part of the year where people are just done. They're like, T. Higgins is on my bench. I don't want him. And like there's a chance that some people out there are going to be like, I want to see what happens with Flacco. But there's also a chance that they're done and just don't want him anymore. So T. Higgins, I think his better days this year are ahead of him. Next up, we got Isaiah Pacheco, which this one might be a little obvious if you watch football. we finally know what to do with Isaiah Pacheco, and that is to buy him. It's been tough sledding for him. Pacheco's looked good the last couple of weeks. The snap share continues to climb. 77% in week 6. He had a season high, 12 carries. After a season high number in week 5, so it's trending all the way up for Pacheco. And then per Next Gen Stats, he had 4 rushes of 15 plus yards versus Detroit. 4 rushes of 15 or more yards. He had 4 combined leading up to week 6. And then in one game, he matched his whole year total. Pacheco had also 3 targets. Hunt only had 1. You saw Brashad Smith, their running back, 7th round running back. I think he went to SMU. He had 4. He's playing a bigger role in the passing game. But when it comes to the running back, he had 4 red zone carries. Hunt only had 1. Hunt had just 5 routes to Pacheco's 19. 50%. If the Chiefs offense turns back into a fantasy wagon, and remember, the Chiefs offense has looked stronger the last couple of weeks, I think dumpster diving for Pacheco is a smart move to make. Top 10 schedule in strength of schedule for running backs using the fantasy strength of schedule tool. So you could trade a bench player like a Jacoby Myers or even like a Tony Pollard straight up for Pacheco. All right. I hope you guys got some value out of the buy low. You ready for the sell high? All right, sell high coming up. Number 1. Kendrick Bourne, wide receiver, San Francisco. He had a big week 6, right? 142 yards, 5 catches. Numbers slightly inflated because he had 2 deep shots. Like, you can always take advantage of people that don't really pay attention to these type of things. They just see like, oh my God, 142 yards. That's incredible. It's the perfect sell high opportunity, right? He had 2 deep shots, right? His chemistry with Mac Jones is real, and I'm not pouring cold water on that. I'm just saying his recent spike in production is a direct result of a severely depleted wide receiver room. Severely. You're going to have the return of George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall. Ricky Pearsall is like George Kittle and Ricky Pearsall are immediately going to halt Kendrick Bourne's production. If you can trade him now to capitalize on his unstable, it's not sustainable. So if you could trade him now and capitalize on his unsustainable wide receiver 1 status, I would do that because there's a very small window. Now is the time to try and figure out which of your other league managers are not paying attention and just looking at points. Sell them high if you can. All right, next up. This one, probably pretty obvious, right? Rico Dowdle. Wow. He's on fire. Pretty incredible stuff we saw last week, right? He's run for 206 yards and then 183 yards. Okay. Do remember that those games were against the Miami Dolphins and the Dallas Cowboys, 2 of the worst teams against the run in the NFL. So regardless of how well Dowdle played, Chuba Hubbard, who's having a pretty good season himself, just signed a big contract. He's going to be returning soon. Dowdle is not going to disappear, but then this backfield becomes what Seattle is. And like how much how much do you not want to be in that situation, right? Or even worse than 50-50. Or we're just going to play the hot hand each game, and it could change every week depending on, who that is. And it gets really, really difficult to have somebody as an RB1 or an RB2 that you can't rely on every single week, right? Who has the open hole on an early drive? Oh, well, now that's the running back for 75% of the game. It's not great. It's not great for the players. It's not great for fantasy football. Rico Dowdle's value will never be higher than it is right now. Trade him for a running back who people are lower on, but they have the backfield to themselves. Think Derrick Henry. Maybe it's too late for that one after last week. Bill, who we were just talking about, Ja'Cory Merritt, Javonte Williams. We talked about him earlier. Like, go ahead and use Rico Dowdle. Plan ahead by trading for an injured back, like a Bucky Irving, even who's going to be back soon. But do not waste the trade value if you have Rico Dowdle, right? That's part of being great at fantasy, is understanding when to sell high, when to buy low. And this is the most obvious sell high of all sell highs. If you're trying to figure out how to do it, I have a note here. You could try to package him to acquire a Mike Evans. Mike Evans is, dealing with an injury. He's getting a little bit older, but he'll be returning this week. So it's possible. And go ahead and try the Derrick Henry. I said it may be too late, but he's going on a bye week, and the Ravens are they're having a lot of issues. So it's worth a shot. Okay. That's all I'm saying. Next up, we got another running back. Excuse me. Another running back. This time it's Cleveland. Quinshon Judkins. Everyone loves a workhorse running back. Personally, I prefer workhorses who play in good offenses, and that's not the case with Quinshon Judkins. He has been terrific despite playing for the punchless Browns. Early season magic, it could dissipate over time, averaging 5.5 yards per carry in his first 2 games. He's averaged a more modest 4.1 yards per carry over his last 3 games. He's had 8 catches, and he had 8 catches in his first 3 games. He's had 1 catch in his last 2, and he's only had 3 targets. And of course, the touchdown outlook is pretty grim for a running back playing for a team that's only scored 8 touchdowns in its first 5 games. If you have adequate running back depth, I would be willing to trade Judkins for Brian Thomas Jr., a Cortland Sutton. If I were in rough shape at tight end, Tyler Warren. That one might be more difficult, but think about it. If there's somebody out there that's real desperate for a running back, like, somebody might go for that. But don't expect Quinshon Judkins to necessarily bounce back to what you saw week 1 or week 2. Vital. Look, the reason I'm not kicking myself, because I don't know if I told you. I know I told you that I was telling everybody last week to go get Vital off waivers. Yes, am I disappointed that 20 minutes before kickoff I swapped him out with Bam Knight? Of course. But am I kicking myself still? Not really. For several reasons. Number one, the first is his week 6 performance, which we just saw. He finished with 124 rushing yards, 14 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. He's likely never going to approach these stats again this season. Okay, the second, that Miami had allowed the most rushing yards per game, even before its week 6 matchup. We knew that it was going to, whoever the Chargers went with was RB1 because of that matchup. He's going to face tougher opponents over the next 3 weeks. You got the Colts, you got the Vikings and Brian Flores' defense, and then you got Tennessee. The third is that Hassan Haskins can become the hot hand and at very least becoming a running back by committee with Vidal. And fourth is that Omarion Hampton could return from the IR as early as week 10, which would force Vidal as nothing more than a bench player on your roster. Once Omarion Hampton's gone, you know what I mean, or comes back, Vidal's done. I would even try to get Omarion Hampton in return for a trade for Vidal. That would be something, right? See if someone will go for that. Here's another one that you get these running backs that people get real high on after, a really big game. And the question is, can they continue the trajectory, right? And that is going to be the question here with Cam Skattebo. He's played very well since Tyrone Tracy suffered a shoulder injury in week 3, averaging 17.3 rushing attempts for 74 yards and a touchdown and 20 points per game. He had 3 touchdowns on Thursday night. That won probably many fantasy players their week 6 matchup. So while fantasy players shouldn't force a team, they should explore sell high offers for the former Arizona State running back. And think about this. How many times have we seen a running back come into the league that isn't heavily game planned for defensively? He has one of these type of games, and then all of a sudden, everyone's like ready. Like the Broncos have been asked like 7 times this week about Cam Skattebo, right? He is no longer going to just kind of sneak his way in to, hey, who is that guy? Oh, that's that guy. No, we all know who he is. He's a part of the game plan. He's a part of the packages that are, being implemented throughout the week. He's a part of the film. Like he's going to have a much harder time having a game like that again. He's averaged 4.29s per rushing attempt over the past month, including 3.96 before week 6. So think about that. Before his big week 6 game, he wasn't even averaging 4 yards per carry. Tracy only played 32% of the snaps last week coming off the injury, getting only 4 touches. Okay, he's going to see more work the further he gets past the injury. That is going to take away from Skattebo. And I think I would just explore, whatever sell high trade offers you could get. I mean, as crazy as it might sound, I would happily trade away Skattebo to land like a Saquon Barkley or a Bucky Irving. All right. Skattebo is somebody that everybody's going to be high on. Go ahead and see if you can find somebody that's bored with Saquon Barkley, bored with Bucky Irving being hurt. Give them the guy that is the hot name. Don't tell him that he averaged less than 4 yards per carry over the past month before week 6, and see if you can get him as a perfect sell high candidate. Finally, we got a wide receiver. JSN. Now this one was sent to me. I'm not crazy on this one. I had this one was sent to me, and well, I'll read it to you. Call me crazy. I want to, but I'll hold off on it. You guys tell me. But I bet I could get a haul for JSN right now. He's coming off 2 straight wide receiver 3 weeks, finishing with 132 and 162 yards, respectively, and over 27 points per in PPR leagues. I'd be happy to send him in exchange for a package that includes a struggling stud and a flex option. Maybe you could get a player like Jamar Chase back, along with a fringe starter like Chase Brown. I'd also be happy sending him for Justin Jefferson, who just had his bye, and an injured running back like Amarian Hampton, who should return after a few weeks. It all depends on what the other team has to offer, but that's something I'm probably targeting this week. I got to disagree with this one. And look, not every time a wide receiver is having, oh, this guy's had 2 top 5 weeks, sell high. Now, sometimes you want to take a step back and ask yourself, the whole point of sell high is not just to get rid of the players that have big weeks. You're only supposed to get rid of the players that have big weeks that you think will not sustain that production. Like, oh, this guy has an unrealistic expectation on him. Let's get rid of him. Somebody out there thinks that JSN is a top 3 wide receiver, and they shouldn't think that. And I know they shouldn't think that, but they don't. But in this case, what is unsustainable about what JSN is doing? Sam Darnold leads the NFL in throws 20 yards or more. They're pushing the ball down the field, and they're being successful at it. And JSN is the number 1 wide receiver in this operation. Like, is he going to get 162 yards every week? No. But that's not, nobody is. You know what I mean? Like, that is he going to get 132 and 162 yards every week? No. Okay. But you could say that about any wide receiver in the NFL that got 132 and 162 yards, right? Let's just get rid of Justin Jefferson because he's not going to get 162 yards again. You know what I mean? I got to say, I think it's a bad move. And I think I would hold somebody like that. Okay. But like I said, it all depends on what other teams are willing to offer. But that's something worth at your own risk. Keep in mind, once they say accept, even if you didn't think they would, better make sure it's worth your while in case they say yes. And then finally, another one that is probably sketchy for a lot of people, Drake London. Drake London for the Atlanta Falcons. Now, don't get me wrong, I think he'll have a good end of the season. He's one of the better receivers out there. With that being said, I do expect to start seeing some touchdown regression for London after the last 2 weeks. You got to keep in mind that you're getting other receivers that are starting to come back. We just talked about the return of Darnell Mooney. Darnell Mooney is going to find his way back onto the field. He's that deep threat target. Also, a lot of people can't bring themselves to trust Michael Penix after a couple lackluster performances this year. Like, yeah, that's awesome that you're able to beat Buffalo 28-14. That's great. But why'd you lose 30-0 to the Panthers? You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, but Atlanta, now this one is different than the JSN one. Like, this, I understand, right? Drake London's coming off some very, very great performances. And there's going to be a couple weeks between now and the end of the year if you trade him that you're like, oh, damn, that was a good year. That was a good week. But all you have to do is click on his name, show stats, and you can remind yourself why you traded him. Because there's going to be a lot of weeks where he's going to finish with 10 points. So if it's possible that you can sell him to some of your league mates with an elite wide receiver and get a high wide receiver 2 and an RB2 for him, yes, do it. That's what it's all about. Get yourself a Bucky Irving and a Cortland Sutton. I mean, you got to think, like, whatever position you're lacking in, whatever that position is, that's when you sell high. Okay? You're trying to get 2 positions to make up for where you're lacking. I traded Mike Evans. When the season started, I traded Jordan Love and Mike Evans for Lamar Jackson. Every single fantasy calculator out there said not to do it. I felt like Mike Evans was going to have his first down year. I was listening to his interviews throughout training camp. He didn't seem happy to be there. I just was like, I'm just not feeling it this year. And plus, I drafted Mike Evans in the 5th round. Lamar Jackson was drafted in the 2nd round. I'm flipping a 5th round pick, getting a 2nd round pick, and I used my 2nd round pick on Jonathan Taylor. So I have 2 guys that I should not have. And all the fantasy trade value calculators were telling me that I was getting the raw end of the deal. Okay, sure. Lamar Jackson has won. He won me like my first 2 weeks of the year. He got like 40 points every week. I can't wait for him to come back. The him being hurt really does suck, but yeah, like I even draft players with the expectation to trade them. Like when I drafted Mike Evans, I was like, I'm going to trade him before week 1 because I think, oh, there's some other receivers I can get in the 6th, 7th round, that people aren't really high on, like a George Pickens, and that's the case every single year. So, but it's all about figuring out where you're weak and then figuring out which player can I get rid of, where I can first off replace that position that you're trading, but then get an additional weapon at wherever you need it. This is the time to do it. It's week 7. All right. We're getting to that point of the season where people are giving up on players. And on the flip side of that, players like Javonte Williams, like Drake London, Scatabo, it still can be considered fluky, right? But if they have another top 3 if Javonte Williams has another 40-point, 30-point week, all of a sudden these guys are untouchable. Okay? So don't wait for that to happen. Finally, I'm going to fly through this. These are the best and worst matchups this week. We got Aaron Rodgers going against the Bengals. At first glance, the Bengals defense isn't all that good of a matchup for quarterbacks. They're closer to average than elite, giving up the 11th most points per game to opposing signal callers. However, that's mostly because they have suppressed quarterback rushing production. Cincinnati's defense actually ranks 3rd in yards per game, 6th in touchdowns per game, and 3rd in net yards per attempt through the air. That works out just fine for Aaron Rodgers, who dual threat days are long behind him. If the quarterback is going to produce, it's going to be through the air. So this is an excellent matchup for him, especially if Joe Flacco can keep the Bengals even reasonably competitive. Expect Rodgers to provide solid stream-worthy numbers. Bad matchup, Sam Darnold versus the Texans. We know how stingy that defense is. Don't even need to get into it. Good matchup, Jaylen Warren versus the Bengals. Running back, just keep picking on the Bengals. Why don't we? But we know that their weakness against the pass, they've also given up 30 points per game to opposing running backs, over 3 points more than the next most generous team. So bad matchup, Zonovan Knight, running back, Arizona versus the Packers. Unfortunately, his 2nd week as a running back is coming against a Packers defense. Good matchup, Courtland Sutton versus the Giants. I was just telling you he's going to have a big week. This should be a big one. The Giants rank 3rd in the league in points allowed to opposing receivers, and the Giants actually leads the league in both yards and receptions allowed, ahead of even the Cowboys' horrendous defense. So fire the veteran up with confidence this week, and that's not even to mention the emotional, Demaryius Thomas being inducted into the Ring of Fame. It's going to be a big week for Courtland Sutton. Devontae Adams, bad matchup against the Vikings. Unfortunately, he's going to face a Vikings defense. I'm not going to recommend benching A.J. Brown, who's seen at least 8 targets in each of the last 5 games. But for the number 2 wide receiver, Devontae Smith, this might be a matchup worth avoiding. Smith definitely has talent to provide a quality outing, so he's not a must bench by any means. But given the absence level to which the Vikings have shut down opposing receivers so far, he is far from a safe start. Mason Taylor, New York Jets tight end against the Panthers. Good matchup. Yeah, back-to-back weeks with a 26% target share. Mason Taylor was a hot sleeper candidate heading into week 6. Unfortunately, he was unable to escape the pit of despair that was the Jets' offense in London. No, he couldn't escape the Broncos' defense, is what it was. However, everything's lining up for a bounce-back week. For one, Garrett Wilson will likely be out with a knee injury, opening up plenty of targets to go around. And number 2, the Panthers' defense has been terrible against opposing tight ends so far this season. They rank 2nd in fantasy points allowed and 1st in yards allowed to the position. If you can't stomach playing a Justin Fields pass catcher, and I would understand if you can't, the rookie is a solid streaming option. And then finally, bad matchup, tight end, San Francisco, Jake Tunges, Atlanta Falcons, playing versus whatever. With George Kittle and pretty much the entire receiving group sidelined, Jake Tunges has stepped up as a reliable option in the 49ers passing game. He's provided scores of 13.3, 13.6, and 8.8 half PPR points over the last 3 weeks. However, his run as a viable streaming option likely come to an end this week. The Falcons have absolutely shut down opposing tight ends this season, allowing a laughable low 1.8 receptions for 17 yards per game. They also just given up 1 tight end touchdown, which was Dalton Knox last night. Thankfully, it was Dalton Knox because I had Dalton Kincaid, and then they ruled him out. And I'm like, oh my God, who am I going to start? Got to go get Dalton Knox. And I did, but he only had 4.3 half PPR points per game going into that game. Or no. 4.3 is the average that Atlanta gives up to tight ends. Say it that way. If Tunges were George Kittle, who should practice this week, but currently seems unlikely to suit up, I'd say start him anyway. But it's not George Kittle, it's Jake Tunges. So don't expect good results there. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I will be going tomorrow with Dynasty Trade Advice, the rest of the season rankings, running back handcuff rankings, advice for struggling teams, fantasy football waiver wire advice, and of course, trade advice for week 7. That's all coming up tomorrow. And of course, weekly rankings, wide receiver, quarterback, running back, tight end, defense. I'm going to give you my 1 through 25 on every position. I will also be going live tomorrow at noon Central Time, giving you my predictions for week 7. And you can find that right here at the Only Football Podcast. We will be going live at noon Central Time with our week 7 predictions. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you got some value out of this, and I will see you on the flip side later.